Welcome back from the engagement. This is part 35 featuring Neo and Jiho. Where are you tuning in from? Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you won't miss any updates. When the song reached its final notes, Jiho leaned down and kissed Neo tenderly, sealing the night with love. Applause rose softly from the organizers who had gathered at the edges of the terrace, but Neo hardly heard it. All she could feel was Jiho's arms around her, the music still echoing in her heart, and the truth that she had been chosen forever. The night continued with laughter, warmth, and gentle conversation. They remained together, Jiho, Neo, Tumi, and Insu, sharing smiles, exchanging soft words, and letting joy settle deep. When Jiho asked Neo if she wished to rest, she leaned against him, whispering that she could never forget this night. And so the evening closed not in shadows, but in light. Fireworks still lingering in the sky, music written just for her, and a love that would carry them into every tomorrow. Her song still floated like a memory between the stars and the sea. Jiho had guided Neo back to their villa after the dance, his arm around her, not letting go for even a second. She leaned into him, tired but peaceful, her face glowing from tears and laughter. Inside, the room welcomed them with soft golden lamplight. Jiho helped her sit on the edge of the bed and knelt before her. Carefully, with hands gentler than silk, he slipped off her shoes. His brow furrowed as he noticed the faint swelling of her feet, the marks left by the long day. He didn't say a word that might make her worry. Instead, he smiled at her softly, pressing a kiss against her ankle before setting her feet upon a pillow. Neo let out a small sigh, too tired to protest. "You're spoiling me," she whispered. Jiho looked up at her with eyes full of devotion. "No," he murmured. "I'm only loving you the way you deserve." She smiled, leaned forward to kiss his forehead, and then let him ease her into the bed. He tucked her in as though she were the most delicate thing in the world, pulling the blankets up around her shoulders. Her breathing grew steady, her lashes resting against her cheeks. But Jiho did not sleep. Not yet. He sat at the edge of the bed, watching her for a long time, listening to the faint echo of her song still in his heart. Every line had been about her, the woman who had become his light, his home, his reason to fight and to hope. After a while, he noticed the faint crease in her brow, as if she stirred in her dreams. Jiho reached out, his hand brushing against her forehead. He held still, searching for any warmth of fever. Relief softened his chest when he felt only the coolness of her skin. He leaned down, pressing his lips to her temple. Later, in the depth of night, he rose quietly and knelt again at her feet. With slow, careful strokes, he began to massage her swollen feet, his thumbs pressing gently against her arches, easing away the day's strain. Neo shifted slightly, but did not wake. Jiho smiled to himself, as if proud of this secret act of care. "Sleep, my love," he whispered. "Let me carry your tiredness for you." When she turned unconsciously toward him, reaching out in her sleep, he climbed back beside her. He pulled her against him, guiding her until her head rested against his chest, her body curled into his arms like a child. He wrapped the blanket around them both and held her close. His hand stroked slowly down her back, calming her even in her dreams. Every hour or so, Jiho would wake again, as though some inner thread bound him to her every breath. He would touch her forehead, brush his hand down her arm, pull her closer if she drifted too far. Once, when she shivered faintly, he pulled the blanket tighter and tucked it beneath her chin, whispering softly in her ear, though she could not hear him. The morning sun filtered softly through the curtains, painting the room with a warm, golden glow. Neo and Jiho slowly woke from their sleep, their bodies still calm from the night's rest. They both rose to their knees on the bed, facing each other, still holding the warmth of sleep in their eyes. Jiho reached for her hands, and Neo clasped his firmly, their fingers intertwining. Neo's voice trembled as she began to speak. She told him she could not stop thinking about the song he had written and sung for her. With tears in her eyes, she said she never imagined a love so deep, so tender, so intentional. She admitted, I don't know if I can live without listening to my song again and again. Her eyes widened softly as she asked, "When did you even write it? Tell me about it. I didn't even know you could sing." Jiho's lips curved into a gentle smile. He confessed that music had always been a part of him. He told her how, back in his student years, he had written so many songs. At one point, he had dreamed of pursuing music fully, but his grandmother advised him otherwise. She told him music could fade, but a solid career would build a stable foundation. He listened to her, and so he built his path in technology. Yet even as he obeyed, his heart never let go of music. He told Neo how he had spent most of his university life in France, nearly 8 years in total. Though he studied technology there, France gave him another gift. It deepened his passion for music. He learned 7 languages in which he could sing, but French remained closest to his heart. Jiho then leaned closer, his voice soft and confessional. He revealed that the song she loved so much had been written the very day they were leaving for Botswana. He wrote it with her in his heart. Neo laughed through her tears, touched beyond words. "I want to listen to my song again. It's making me so emotional," she admitted, brushing her cheeks. Jiho reached for her hand again and promised gently, "If you like more songs, I can always write a song for you." His eyes glowed with sincerity. After a pause, his expression grew more serious. He asked softly, "But tell me, should we see a doctor when we return to Korea, or should I call one here on the island?" Neo shook her head quickly, still smiling but firm. She reassured him, "No, I don't feel bad. Please, we must not call the doctor. I'm only a little dizzy, but I'm fine." Her words calmed him, and his concern eased. He pulled her into his arms, resting his chin against her hair. Their hearts beat steadily together in the quiet of the morning. The morning sun spilled warmly across the veranda, touching the white curtains of the beach villa and letting in the sounds of gentle waves crashing against the sand. Neo and Jiho stepped out together, hand in hand, still wrapped in the glow of the tender morning they had just shared. Their hearts were lighter, their smiles softer, as if the love between them had quietly deepened overnight. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee and warm bread greeted them first, followed by the sight of Tumi and Insu already waiting at the breakfast table under a shaded canopy overlooking the sea. The table was adorned with tropical fruits, pineapples cut in flower shapes, papayas gleaming orange, bowls of strawberries and grapes, and alongside them, plates of eggs, smoked fish, and croissants. "Good morning, you two," Tumi said brightly, rising to hug her sister. "You both look rested." Neo blushed, hiding her face against Jiho's shoulder, while Jiho chuckled quietly. Insu raised his cup with a knowing smile. "Ah, finally," Insu teased. "I thought you two might spend the whole day in bed and forget about us." They all laughed, and the air instantly became easy, warm, like family. Jiho pulled out Neo's chair and let her sit beside him before taking his place. Tumi and Insu sat across, and for a moment the 4 of them simply admired the beauty around them. The glistening waves, the gentle sea breeze, and the blessing of being together on this little island. They began to eat, passing plates and pouring tea. Tumi leaned across to Neo. "Neo," she whispered softly, "come with me after we finish. There's something important. I woke early and asked one of the island workers to help me get a pregnancy test. The man just returned. It's waiting for us." Neo froze, her fork pausing halfway. Her heart skipped. She had been suspecting, yes, but the thought of truly knowing both thrilled and terrified her. Her eyes darted toward Jiho, who was smiling easily as he sliced open a mango for her plate, completely unaware of the conversation. "Okay," Neo whispered back, her throat suddenly tight. They finished most of their food, though Neo could barely swallow. Tumi gave her a reassuring glance before standing. "We'll be back soon," Tumi announced casually, tugging Neo up with her. "Just a short walk." Jiho looked up curiously, his chopsticks pausing. "Everything all right?" "Perfectly fine," Neo managed with a smile. "We'll just be a moment." Jiho nodded, though his gaze lingered with a trace of concern. Inside the villa, the small white bag sat on the bathroom counter. Neo's hands trembled as she picked it up, her breath shallow. Toomey, I'm nervous, she admitted, her voice breaking. Toomey took her hands firmly. Listen to me. Whatever the result, you are not alone. We will face this together. And if it is positive, then this is joy, Neo. Pure joy. Don't fear it. Neo nodded, trying to draw strength from her sister's steady eyes. She went inside alone, while Toomey waited outside, whispering quiet prayers. Minutes later, the sound of the wrapper crinkling, then silence. The seconds stretched unbearably. When Neo finally stepped out, her eyes were wide, shining, and her lips trembled. She held the test in her hand. Toomey! Her voice cracked. It's positive! Toomey gasped, rushing forward. They embraced tightly, Neo's tears flowing freely. Jesus, thank you, Toomey whispered, clutching her sister. Thank you for this blessing. Neo cried against her shoulder. Toomey, I never imagined They knelt together on the tiled floor, hands clasped around the small test. Neo sobbed, overwhelmed not with fear, but with love, with the sheer weight of all the blessings that had unfolded in her life. Jiho's love, she whispered through tears. It's too much. All this to me. The riches, his tenderness, everything he's done for me. Sometimes I ask, what am I going to do with so much love? How do I carry it? Toomey stroked her hair gently. Do you remember the disabled woman back home? The one who prayed for us when we fetched water for her? Neo blinked through her tears. Yes. I think I was only 8 and you were 5. We used to cook for her sometimes, too. Toomey nodded. She always told us that kindness opens doors beyond what the world can see. She prayed that your light would shine. Look at you now, Neo. Her prayers are alive. This love, this child, it's part of that light. Neo shivered, remembering a dream. Toomey? Do you know I dreamt of that woman a few nights ago? She was sitting under a tree, playing with 2 babies on her lap, clapping her hands. Do you think... She hesitated. Do you think we could have twins? Toomey smiled softly, pressing her sister's hands. Maybe. God can do anything. Whatever he gives, it will be beautiful. They prayed again, right there, thanking God for the new life. Neo's tears ran freely, but this time, they were tears of joy. When they returned to the breakfast table, Jiho and Insu were laughing loudly about some old story from their university days. Jiho turned immediately at the sight of Neo, smiling brightly. There you are, he said. We thought you'd gotten lost. Neo forced a steady smile, though her heart pounded with the secret she now carried. She sat down beside Jiho, who instinctively touched her hand under the table, his thumb brushing against her skin in that comforting way that always calmed her. The conversation flowed again. Toomey threw glances at Neo, as if reminding her they would plan the reveal carefully. By the way, Jiho, Insu teased, Toomey told me she used to think you had stopped writing music altogether. Jiho laughed, shaking his head. I nearly did, but after I found love... He glanced meaningfully at Neo. I had to resume. Inspiration doesn't stay quiet forever. Everyone chuckled warmly. Toomey wiped a tear of laughter and leaned forward. Jiho, you really do have a beautiful voice. Thank you for cherishing my sister. You don't know how much that means to me. Neo felt her throat tighten again, but this time she held the tears in. She simply squeezed Jiho's hand, as if to tell him silently that he would soon know the truth, soon share in her joy. The rest of the day unfolded like a dream. They walked by the beach, collecting seashells. Insu and Jiho tried their hand at fishing from the pier, while Neo and Toomey lounged under umbrellas, sipping fresh coconut water. Occasionally, Jiho would wave at Neo, making her laugh, or run up to show her a small fish he caught. As the sun lowered, casting gold over the ocean, Jiho and Neo shared quiet moments, her head resting on his shoulder as he hummed softly in French, his voice melting with the sea breeze. The secret grew inside Neo, a flame she longed to unveil. She thought of how she would tell him. When Toomey and I were coming back earlier, one of the organizers said something arrived to our room. It sounded like a delivery, maybe from a friend? Would you check? A flicker of curiosity brightened his face. Want me to bring it down? If it's what I think, open it there and then bring it, Neo said, aiming for casual, feeling her pulse lift like a bird. Just in case it needs a careful touch. A careful touch, he echoed, amused. Understood. He kissed her temple, nodded a playful, guard her for me to the other two, and set off along the path at an eager, unhurried jog. The moment his back vanished into the palms, Neo let out a shaky breath and pressed her napkin to her lips. Toomey slid her hand over Neo's knuckles under the cloth and squeezed. Breathe, she murmured. It's the best kind of news. Insu leaned in, voice low and warm. I have never seen him run for a package that wasn't a drone part, he joked, trying to keep her smiling. Upstairs, the suite opened with its hushed, cool air and a faint trace of last night's roses. The bed had been made to hotel perfection. Crisp edges, generous pillows, and sitting precisely in its center was a slim white box tied with a pale gold ribbon. A small card lay across it with his name written in Neo's hand. Jiho smiled despite himself. A careful touch, he repeated, and slipped the ribbon free. Tissue paper whispered. The first thing he lifted was impossibly small, a pair of baby socks, soft as breath and the color of cloud. He froze, the air rearranging itself inside his chest. The next thing came into focus. The clean plastic window of a pregnancy test, its lines quiet but thunder loud in their meaning. For a heartbeat, he didn't breathe. Then he saw the card beneath. You are going to be a father, N. He read it twice, and then the laugh escaped him, bright and disbelieving, and so full of joy it bounced off the glass. I'm going to be a father, he said to the empty room, and then louder because the sentence deserved to hear itself. I'm going to be a father. He didn't think to pocket anything. He gathered the box like a relic and ran. Down the stairs 2 at a time, across warm planks, past a couple who turned at the sound of his happiness and smiled because joy is contagious. Palms blurred. Light flashed. He hit the path to the terrace at something like a sprint and saw them, Neo in red at the corner of the table, Toomey watching with both hands pressed to her mouth, Insu half risen as if his legs had moved before his mind. Neo! Jiho called, breathless and laughing. Neo! He had no other word big enough. He reached her, lifted the card high in one hand like a banner, and then wrapped his arms around her, box and all, lifting her clean off the ground. Neo let out a sound that was part laugh, part prayer. Thank you, he said into her hair, the words tumbling over one another. Thank you. Thank you. He set her down and cupped her face, kissing her forehead as if it were a sacred thing. How do you feel? Dizzy? Hungry? Water? Say the word. I feel overwhelmed, Neo admitted, laughing through tears. She tapped the edge of the box between them. Do you like my little surprise? Best of my life, he said simply. He turned, eyes bright, to the others. This is really happening. Toomey stepped in and hugged Neo so tightly, both of them laughed. We'll go gentle today, she said in her steady nurse cadence, tears shining at the edges of her lashes. Small sips, small bites, and we'll keep sea salt handy. We'll call your doctor when we land. Insu's smile was broad, eyes a little damp. He clapped Jiho's shoulder, careful of the box. Congratulations, brother. A beat of soft humor warmed the words. You realize you'll be insufferable now. Already am, Jiho said, beaming. Neo took a small forkful of omelet, surprisingly appealing, and Toomey applauded softly. Jiho poured sparkling water and added a whisper of ginger syrup. Dizzy? He asked. A little, Neo said. Better with sips. Ginger on the jet, Insu said, already mentally filing lists. Blankets, neck pillows. I'll check the recliner's angle. Toomey tipped her head at him, fond and amused. You're in full logistics mode. Today deserves logistics, Insu said, and the look they shared said the rest. Jiho threaded his fingers through Neo's. Last night I sang for you, he said quietly, but I think I was singing for both of you without knowing. He lifted their hands and kissed her ring finger, then, unable to resist, kissed the tiny socks again. Neo's eyes filled. "Sing to us forever," she whispered. "I intend to," he said, and it wasn't a promise so much as a fact. They lingered under the palms until the light turned softer, wandering the garden paths in twos and fours. Tumi and Insu peeled off to coordinate luggage and confirm the late-night departure. Jiho and Neo slipped back to the suite for a brief pocket of quiet. The box went on the dresser like a little shrine. Jiho knelt to rest his forehead against her belly for a long, unembarrassed second. Neo slid her fingers into his hair and breathed in the newness of everything. Evening folded itself over the island like a velvet shawl. On the tarmac, the jet's polished fuselage mirrored the last pink seam of sunset. Ginger tea steamed in porcelain on a sideboard. Blankets lay stacked like clouds. Insu signed for the catering with a flourish. Tumi tucked a small tin of sea salt into Neo's carry-on with the precise pride of a metal pinning. Just before they climbed the stairs, Jiho looked at Neo again with that same unguarded wonder that had run through him upstairs when he'd opened the box. "Ready?" She nodded, tears bright again but steady now. "Ready?" They boarded as four and settled as something larger. Somewhere over the ink-blue ocean, as the island lights fell away behind them, Jiho's hand found Neo's in the dim, and she turned the card over in her lap and read it one more time, even though she already knew every letter. "You are going to be a father." The sentence glowed like a small lamp between them, and the plane rode night like a lullaby, carrying them toward home and the long, bright life opening ahead.